You know, when we're fixing cars for a living, you can't get paid on it until you fix it, and you can't fix it until you diagnose it. So it stands to reason that a quicker diagnosis leads to a quicker fix and getting paid quicker. That all sounds simple enough, but in the real world, a quick diagnosis is best accomplished with logical thinking. In this presentation, we're going to cover two vehicles with virtually the same problem. The first one is really rather simple, but the second one, even though it's the same problem, has a completely different set of problems. Now, this is the video-audio version of this presentation. Remember, you can download the complete presentation at my website. There are several slides in this presentation. If you're an instructor, use those slides to stimulate the discussion and the teaching points in your class. If you're instructing yourself and learning this trade, don't hurry through it. Don't simply just watch the video and be done with it. Either watch the video and stop it at all the questions or use the presentation, but then think through it, because remember, it's designed to help you discover the answers. You know, when we're trying to make a living fixing cars, you can't get paid on one until you fix it, and you can't fix it until you diagnose it. So it stands to reason that a quick diagnosis would mean a quick fix and getting a quicker payout. Let's take a look at an example. We've got a 99 Mercury Villager with a 3.3 and 150,000 miles on it. When the customer brought it in, the complaint was that the check engine light was on and it run like it had a miss. It feels like it's got a steady, consistent miss. And when we scanned it, we had code P0304, which indicates cylinder number 4 is misfiring. When we take a look at the intake here, now we've got to figure out a way to diagnose this quickly so that we can get paid on it. But we need evidence, right? How would you approach this? Why would you do that? Now, diagnostically speaking, can you make any assumptions at this point? What are they, and how can they save you time? What step would you take next, and why? Now it's time to gather some evidence. We have a code P0304. We want to take out the spark plug and install a spark tester. Why are we doing that? Now you can see right here there's injector number 4. Luckily this one's pretty easy access. It's right up in front. So we want to install a noid light on the injector. Why are we doing that? Okay. Okay, what evidence does this method give you? What does the noid light tell you? Now, what does the noid light not tell you? How does that matter at this point? What does this method of spark testing tell you? And what does this method not tell you? And how does that matter? What about hearing the compression? What does that tell you? Taking into consideration that you've got a P0304 indicating a cylinder number 4 misfire, is there a need to check the other cylinders at this point? Why and or why not? It starts, runs, and accelerates well. It just has a clear and a present misfire. What evidence can you not see, but you can assume is there? Since it starts, runs, and accelerates well, there has to be adequate fuel delivery and pressure. And again, since it starts, runs, and accelerates well, but just has a clear and present misfire, we can rule out fuel pressure for now. We can rule out compression for now because we can hear it. And we have good spark. We can see it. We also have injector control. We can see the pulse. But is it squirting fuel? So you need to know two things. What are they? Is it squirting fuel, and or is it capable of squirting fuel? What's the next thing to check and why? Okay, we're using an ohmmeter to test for fuel injectors. We're on the first fuel injector. You can see by the pattern we got 11.8, 11.9. We're going to move to the second injector, the one that's suspected bad. Just use your red and black light. And you see this one is out of limits. And we're going to go back to the other injector, or not to go to the third injector. You can see tap in there. And 11.9. So we got 11.8, 11.9 ohms on two of them, but the middle one's out of limits, so that middle injector's got an open in it. So we installed a new injector, and it ran normally. The faster you can diagnose it, the faster you can fix it, and the faster you can get paid on it. Well, you might be saying that that was pretty easy, nothing real tough there. So you want to see something a little bit tougher. Okay, let's look at the same type of problem. Only this time we've got a 99 Mercury Villager 3.3, it's about 150,000 miles on it. The same complaint. Check engine light, runs rough, feels like it's got a steady, consistent misfire. This time we've got a code P0305, which indicates cylinder number 5 is misfiring. So we got the same age vehicle, same miles, same complaint, and basically the same situation. So what do we want to do? Start with the basics, right? Spark, compression, fuel. So since it's running and accelerating well, we can rule out fuel pressure at this point. Do we have good spark? Well, let's see. Okay, if you look at that spark, and you've seen some of our other videos, then you can tell we've got at least 40 kV. So there is sufficient. There is plenty of spark. Okay, we're looking for the ignition. We're going to test spark to see where they got it. We're coming here. We're hooking up to a known good spark plug, not the one under suspicion. If you look at the lap scope, you can see a good single ignition pattern. I'll switch back over here. I'm going to switch to a second good one. Go back to the lap scope. You can still see the good pattern. Now we'll go back to the suspicious one, which is number 5. And we'll hook on to number 5. Go back to the scope and you can see the bad pattern. We've got negative burn time. Your spark is firing. Negative burn time. Something's wrong with that injector. So the first question is, what is an ignition waveform and what can it tell you? Second question, in the video, why did I look at more than one waveform? Okay, we'll cover ignition waveform interpretation in a completely separate lesson. But for now, what do you see different in these two waveforms? So understanding what waveforms are, why is this evidence? So we do a compression check and we see on cylinder number 5, the one that's missing, we got 120 pounds. Do I need to check compression on all the cylinders? If so, or if not, why do you say that? So spark is good, compression is good. So by the process of elimination, are we safe to say that it must be a bad injector? Okay, here's the intake. Now you can see the plastic intake is still installed. And when you look at the front of the engine, you can see that we've got the front injectors and the front spark plugs that have pretty good access. Pretty easy to get to all of them. That's one thing that's nice about this type of situation. However, injector number 5 is under the intake. It's under the plastic intake. In fact, when you take the intake off, you can see there is injector number 5, and we're pretty suspicious that number 5 is the injector, right? So the intake has got to come off to test the injector, right? Is there any way to gain access to that injector without removing the intake? Well, let me ask you this. What, in relationship to the injector, is not under the intake? So if we look at the engine with the intake installed, let's look right over here. That is a connector for all of the injectors. So the injector wires are under the intake, but they can be accessed from above by going to where those wires connect. Okay, I'm going to try and test for an injector. I'm going to first test a good injector so you can see that, and then go to the bad injector wire. We're going to the best connection right here. Come down in here, locate my wire, pierce the wire. Now if you look at the lab scope, you can see the good injector pattern. I'm going to take that out of there, come back to the harness. I'm going to go to my suspect injector. Go to the lab scope and there's no signal. We got a dead injector. Got an open circuit in that injector. So now there is evidence that that injector is bad. Now you can take the injector off and you can be sure that it's justified. We're not going to do something that we don't need to do. Now you can have confidence that your diagnosis is correct. Once the intake is off, that injector is out, you can put it on the bench and test it then and confirm that it does have an open.